So a couple of weeks ago, we got this series on the second half of life going with Colin's baptism. And we kind of gave Colin a charge, and he was so cute. He was just up there smiling at us. But we told him that, Colin, you may not be a year old, but you got some work to do. You got to figure yourself out. You got to figure yourself out. And the truth is, we all do. Every human being does this. But as we figure out who we are, a shadow grows. Think about it. As babies, we're born whole. Initially, this is an amazing thing to watch, but initially, a newborn can't differentiate itself and its mother. They kind of see themselves as one and the same. But we do not stay that way for long. To survive, babies have to figure something out. They need to figure out who they can trust to protect and provide for them. Because we're relational beings. And in any household, we learn that some aspects of ourselves are acceptable to our family and to our community, and there are some aspects of who we are that aren't. And this is how we pass values on to others. The aspects that are seen as negative are rejected, and the positive ones are affirmed. And as kids, you spend so much time, you work to hide those aspects of your personality that might be viewed as negative. And we exaggerate those that are viewed as positive or affirmed. And this is all a part of figuring out who you are. And none of us are just complete as individuals the way we were when we were babies. We have these family systems in our lives that influence us, shape us. And along the way, all of us are wired with this self-preservation instinct to fit into your family, with other kids, and then the world as a whole, your place in your community. A shadow self emerges. Because along the way, when you start seeing those negative things that you try to hide, there is a part of you, and it's a part of who you are, that you try so hard to hide or refuse to even see. And it's a kind of self-rejection. The word persona in Greek means a stage mask. So that's what the word is. It means persona is a stage mask. And every person creates a stage mask, a persona, for how they want to be seen. And your mask isn't really a bad thing. But it's just not completely true either. And eventually, your mask will break.
Jesus taught, the eye is the lamp of the body. Therefore, if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how terrible that darkness will be.
For the eye to truly work, it needs to be able to see both light and shadows. There are those who try only to be seen as the light, the mask, the persona that they've created. And then you've got other people who, they just give up on that. They decide that they're going to just live out of their shadow selves, and they're going to reject the values and the expectations that people around them have told them that they should have. But they become just as blind to the persona that they've chosen. Sometimes that's even harder because they think they've rejected it. Jesus wants you to see the whole person that you are. The person that God sees and loves. When your deeper true self, that knowledge, doesn't work because it refuses to see light or shadows, you may confuse the light from the darkness. And if you find that you've been blind to your true self, to who you are, whatever that persona is, whatever that persona that you've created is in fact darkness. How terrible that darkness is for you. Now I'm going to put another plug in for what we were talking about last week about the need to have a mentor. A good mentor, will see the parts of you that you have tried so hard to hide. Somebody said, well, can your parent be your mentor? It's really difficult. Because we have so much invested into instilling values that we want our kids to have that it's really difficult to see into the shadows. Not impossible, but it's very difficult because we have all of that invested in our kids. That's our role. The second half of life, that process, that path, goes to seeing beyond the persona, beyond the mask that you've created, and to learning to love more the way that Christ loved. And that's not easy to do. Because you have put a lot of work into creating the mask that you wear. You got a lot invested there. And if you've been lying to yourself about your shadows, your darkness, perhaps refusing to see the truth of your use, the truth behind your use of alcohol or porn or abuse. Terrified that if someone else will see that and reject you because of your shadows. How terrible living in that lie must be.
As Jesus put it, don't judge so that you won't be judged. You'll receive the same judgment you give. Whatever you deal out will be dealt out to you. Why do you see a splinter that's in your brother's or sister's eye, but don't notice the log in your own eye? How can you say to your brother or sister, let me take that splinter out of your eye, when there's a log in your own eye? You deceive yourself. First, take the log out of your eye, then you'll see clearly to take the splinter out of your brother's or sister's eye.
You got to take the log out of your eye. And I want you to think about it. Jesus uses that word, a log. It's obviously, this is all symbolic. If you got a log in your eye and you take it out, it's going to hurt. The truth may set you free, but it's going to make you miserable at first. You know, I know it's kind of a cliche now, but when people get angry and irritated about what they see in other people, there's a pretty good chance in my experience that there are some shadows that are lurking around nearby inside them. So kind of the cliche of the closeted gay people who become so anti-gay, or you've got politicians who will espouse family values all the while having affairs. It's that kind of stuff. So what irritates you?
Jesus taught, be sure to make friends quickly with your opponents while you're with them on the way to court. Otherwise, they'll haul you before the judge. The judge will turn you over to the officer of the court, and you will be thrown into prison. I say to you in all seriousness that you won't get out of there until you've paid the very last penny.
I love this teaching. If you can make friends, you can make friends with the people who irritate you, anger you. Those people may represent the shadowy side of yourself. If you can identify with that while you are on the way to court with them, with those things that irritate you, about that self-knowledge even, if you can see that shadow, if you can see your own shadow, you won't end up imprisoned behind your mask or taken to court by others and repaying to the last penny, trying to fix your life and your broken relationships. There is always going to be this temptation, though, when you start being real about yourself, there's always this temptation to self-justify. In 10 seconds, almost any one of us can come up with an excuse of why we do something that hurts. You can say it, everyone does it. That's an easy one. We learned that one as kids. Or I'm not as bad as fill in the blank as what other person you think is worse. We do this from a young age because we want to protect our shadow self. What I'm saying is, don't do that. Don't fall back into self-justification. With a trusted mentor, with a spiritual advisor, a sponsor, whatever words you want to use, make friends with your shadow side. Identify it. I think this is why some of the people that I regard as some of my best friends in this life, the people that I admire, are recovering addicts. They had to make friends with their shadow side. They had to set aside the fear of judgment. Now, earlier I mentioned that the Greek word for stage mask is persona. The Greek word for actor is hypocrite. Someone who's playing a role rather than being real. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather be friends in this life in the days that I have with people I can trust to be real. Even when they lie, that's part of it, because they will not let the fiction live. It's the second half of life. It's moving in this direction that leads to a deeper sense of self. It's the path that leads you to love more like Jesus. And as I said, the truth will set you free, but it might make you miserable at first. But the truth is that the closer that you get to God's holy light, the more shadows that you're going to see. And that's okay. And that's okay. Shadow and sin are not the same thing. Your persona, your mask, it cannot see the evil in itself. It always disguises or denies. Your shadow self disguises itself sometimes as wisdom or prudence. It even acts sometimes, it says justice. It says, I am doing this for your own good, for the greater good. It's when it's really manifesting fear, control, manipulation, and even vengeance. So what I want to encourage you today is deal with your shadows. Do the shadow work of seeing your whole self, your whole truth. Seeing yourself as God sees you. And know, always know this, that you are loved just as you are. Please rise.